friends, and welcome to Coached by Tara, a podcast where Tara...
Hi, that's me.
...explains things to me, hi, that's me, Mike, an idiot who doesn't know things. And today, and for the foreseeable future, Tara is going to be explaining to me the Twilight series of books.
Chapter by chapter.
Chapter by chapter. Each episode will be a chapter. This is the third episode in the third chapter, which is named...
Something that you can guess?
Oh, you want me to guess?
I feel like I always make you guess.
Okay, so the first chapter was First Sight. And the second chapter was Open Book. Yeah, you proud of me that I remember that?
Yeah, because I did not.
The third chapter, those are like idioms, but like cut short, right? Like love at first sight, read me like an open book.
Right. This one is not that. Well, I don't know. But it's just one word. I don't think you'll get it. Are you ready for it?
Hold on. Let's start with an R.
No.
No, I don't know.
All right, chapter 3, Phenomenon.
Phenomenon.
Yes.
Do you ever see that movie Phenomenon with John Travolta?
For some reason, I did not think of that, and I've not seen that movie. But I thought you were gonna say, "Have you seen the movie Xenon?" And I was gonna be like, "Yeah, I have."
Xenon? That's what you were worried about?
Yeah, I have no idea why. I think just because it kind of rhymes.
Phenomenon.
I was just like anticipating.
I have seen
that.
Xenon.
Yeah.
But Phenomenon, the
No,
John Travolta
I have
movie,
not seen that.
he like gains like powers, and then everybody treats him like a freak, and that's what it's about. And then he like dies. I don't know. I just remember...
You just spoiled it for me.
Yeah, spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. He dies.
They put him in a hospital, and then like he breaks his pills, his sleeping pills up into the applesauce to like get the nurse to fall asleep so he can sneak out. I just remember that.
That's pretty creepy.
Yeah, John Travolta, creep. Am I right?
Sure.
I don't know. I actually don't know the man. So anyway, Twilight.
I just want to say, like, we're getting into some story now. Like, okay. I feel like the first two were like,
set up,
kind of setting up how you know them, but I feel like we're getting into some things. So
we're getting into it. we're getting into it. Before we get into the chapter 3, however, I have to do a recap of chapter 2.
Yeah, can you remember?
Which was called Open Book. So chapter 2 started with Bella talking to her father, Charlie.
Charlie.
About the Cullens, because she's like, yo, they're kind of weird. And Charlie got on a soapbox and he was like, yo, check this shit out. I'm motherfucking Charlie. I'm the dad, and I'm gonna tell you some shit. But
he's like quiet, but he's like
right. But he just said, "Yo, listen, this is what's gonna happen." And he said, "The Cullens, the Dr. Cullen is the fucking." He's like basically said he was Gandhi, and then he was like,
"Did he now?"
Yeah, he said he was Gandhi, and he was like, "Yo, this man, without this man in our town, we would die because he's a brilliant surgeon, and those kids are the most well-behaved kids that you'd ever see."
Okay, yeah.
And that's what he said, and she was like, "Whoa, Dad, easy. They're good looking, all right?" And he was like, "Right?" He was like, "You should see the doctor."
I like this version of the book.
"You should see the doctor. He's got, like that's what Charlie said. Anyway, she goes to school, and Edward didn't go to school for almost a week. And
I feel like almost 2, but it might have been a week.
Almost 2 weeks.
You
Who
might
knows?
Be right.
We're not sure. But then he shows up and they're in her biology class where they sit next to each other, and he's just kind of like, "Hello, I'm Edward," and she's all like, "I know." And then like they just talked, and it was like really kind of awkward conversation where he's like, "You don't like the cold, do you?" And she's like, "No." And then he's like, "You must be miserable living here."
Why did your voice turn into old Greg?
"It must be miserable living here in Forks, Washington." And she was like, "Yeah, I fucking hate it." And then he was like, "Why are you here then?" And then like it was this whole thing that we learned about. She didn't want her mom to like be stuck with her, so she moved to spend time with her dad. And then he like just bolts out of the room, like Dwight going into the office to ask Michael Scott to discipline Jim. The last thing that happens in the chapter, I almost said episode. The last thing that happens in the chapter is she goes to get in her car and pull away, and he's like standing there, Edward, and he's like, "Hi," and then she just tries to book out of there, and she almost runs into a car, and then when she pulls away, she's like, "I feel like he was laughing at me."
She could swear it.
She could swear which that would be so crazy and so cringe if
Right.
he was laughing.
Right.
Like,
High school.
how dare you laugh at me, Edward? So yeah, that's
Oh,
my.
that was great.
You liked
was
that?
Yeah, that was pretty close. I mean, it's definitely your own take, but
Oh, Simp Mike was there too, and he was like, "Ugh, I couldn't figure out how to look at the organisms in the microscope, but Edward Cullen, what a dick, right?" And she was like, "Actually, he's pretty smart." And he's like, "Oh, well, yeah, but he probably has a tiny dick or something." And she was like, "No, I've seen it. It's big."
no,
And then he was
no,
like,
no,
he's like,
no,
"Well, he's
back up.
probably a vampire then." And she was like, "Yeah, you're probably right."
No, none of that.
Okay, none of that happened.
No,
Just
some
the
of
first
it,
part.
yeah.
Just the first part.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
All right.
So what do you predict is gonna...
Oh, that's right. I have to predict. I forget how this show
yeah.
goes. So
what do you think is gonna happen next? I mean, we're kind of getting into things. Do you think she's ever gonna find out? Like, what do you
Okay.
think?
So when we started the show, I said there was a couple things I knew about Twilight.
Yep.
And one is a scene where she's in the school parking lot and this car comes flying at her and he just is there and like stops the car.
Mhm.
I think that's coming here.
Oh,
Because
yeah?
it's a phenomenon.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm piecing things together.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
And I think that's happening. I also think that we're gonna find out maybe not exactly why he was being a dick at first, but we're gonna get like an idea of
Mhm.
like, hey, this is why I was such a cock. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I bet it has something to do with him not being able to drink blood.
Okay.
So
I
Tara,
think those are great predictions.
thank you. Wow, you're so nice.
You're welcome.
Tara, are you ready to whisk me back into the cold, wet, snowy, wild, sparkly world of Twilight by Stephanie Meyer?
Yes, I am. Let's
All
go.
right.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. We'll be right back.
All right. Are you ready to be coached?
Oh, I'm so ready to be coached, dear.
All right. Chapter 3, Phenomenon. Are we ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So basically what happens at the start is she wakes up the next day after being maybe laughed at by Edward in the
How dare
parking
he.
lot because like
dare he.
the drama, you know.
Yeah.
She looks outside and she's horrified because there's snow on the ground and it's just so dramatic. But not only that, but it's all the rain that had happened the day before froze.
Turned to ice.
Yeah.
Oh, we know what that's like up here in Michigan.
Yeah, exactly.
The black ice.
It says that everything's a deadly ice slick. So she's like, oh gosh, clumsy me. I'm going to have such a hard time like walking around.
And possibly have a car skid into her.
We don't know that.
crash.
I don't know. Maybe. She sees it says in quotes in the book, I had enough trouble not falling down when the ground was dry. It might be safer for me to go back to bed now. So sad.
So quirky.
So then she's like, I guess I should go to school. And there's a line in here that also says, if I was being honest with myself, I knew I was eager to get to school because I would see Edward Cullen. And that was very, very stupid.
Oh, Eddie. Does anybody ever call him Eddie?
No, but I kind of wish.
Yeah.
But I told you that Molly and I used to call him Eddie.
I asked this before.
Yes. I don't know if you asked it, though.
I did.
Did you?
I remember now. I remember
no.
editing that podcast. I asked it before.
Here
This
we
is
go.
embarrassing. What original content? Anyway, continue.
So she's like, maybe I should be avoiding him entirely after all my babbling yesterday, because apparently that was babbling. But I feel like they had like a pretty decent conversation.
Yeah,
you
it was
know?
awkward, but it wasn't like
At least they were talking and it wasn't
Right.
like angsty across the room.
yeah, and it wasn't Simp Mike.
That's true too. And it says, and I was suspicious of him. Why would he lie about his eyes? I was still frightened of the hostility I sometimes felt emanating from him, and I was still tongue-tied whenever I pictured his perfect face. I was well aware that my league and his league were spheres that did not touch, so I shouldn't be anxious at all to see him today.
Ooh. She wanted their spears to touch.
Spheres. Spears? No, spheres.
Spears, that's what I said.
You said spears, which
Both.
sounds even worse.
Have everything touch.
So then it basically just describes like how it takes like every ounce of her concentration to make it down like the driveway and like stuff like when it's so icy outside. So it's just like very to the point that it's very icy outside.
Right. It's almost like they're setting up
I don't know.
like car crash.
Yeah,
or something.
maybe. And then it says, so that you know have more of this context. Driving to school, I distracted myself from my fear of falling and my unwanted speculations about Edward Cullen by thinking about Mike and Eric. And the obvious
Chess Club Eric?
Yeah, and the obvious difference in how teenage boys responded to me here. I was sure I looked exactly the same as I had in Phoenix. Maybe it was just that the boys back home had watched me pass slowly through all the awkward phases of adolescence and still thought of me that way. Perhaps it was because I was a novelty here, where novelties were few and far between. Possibly my crippling clumsiness was seen as endearing rather than pathetic, casting me as a damsel in distress. Whatever the reason, Mike's puppy dog behavior and Eric's apparent rivalry with him were disconcerting. I wasn't sure if I didn't prefer being ignored, so she's just like, oh my god, I don't
She's like,
want
these
them.
guys are giving me attention and I wish they'd fuck off.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of weird. I never like read that as like conceited, but like for some reason when I'm reading it to you now, I'm like, oh, that's weird.
Well, what I've found about this so far, and what's weird is that she's trying to like the character, and for better, wow, I just mind blanked. But the writer too is trying to like play it up like she's just like awkward, quirky, like doesn't
And I definitely didn't like read that as anything like different though. When I was a teenager, I was like, "Ooh, this is my life."
Yeah,
like,
but you were a kid and you didn't think,
that's
you were
true.
like, okay, cool, that's how I would think too.
Right.
But it's like it's very conceited.
Right.
She comes off as very conceited.
It comes off as conceited, but she's not conceited as a person. That's not how she's trying to portray her though, which is weird.
I know, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like she's not trying to portray her that way, but it still comes off that way. And I think that's actually probably similar to how most conceited people are. They don't think they're coming off that way, but
that's true.
They are.
So then
not me though. Not conceited.
Oh, is that right?
That's very right.
Okay.
I'm just the most normal looking guy you've ever seen.
Oh yeah. Very humble indeed.
Very humble. I'm very humble. I'm very I'm totally taken away from the show. Continue.
Okay. So then she like realizes, I mean, she's having all these thoughts on her way to school, and then she realizes like, oh, like my drive wasn't that bad. I thought it would be worse. And she finds out it's just a little detail that Charlie put snow chains on her tires the night before because he's just like a nice boy. Like he's just so nice.
Oh, he's a man.
Yeah, he's a man, but still.
You put some respect on Charlie, right? He's
sorry. I'm so sorry. So she's standing outside of her truck. And
is it gonna happen?
And she's noticing the snow tires. And she's standing by the back corner of the truck, struggling to fight back the sudden wave of emotion the snow chains had brought on, when she hears an odd sound. It was a high-pitched screech, and it was fast becoming painfully loud. I looked up startled, the book says. And this is what it says. I saw several things simultaneously. Nothing was moving in slow motion the way it does in the movies. Instead, the adrenaline rush seemed to make my brain work much faster, and I was able to absorb in clear detail several things at once. Number one, Edward Cullen was standing 4 cars down from me, staring at me in horror. His face stood out from the sea of faces, all frozen in the same mask of shock. But of more immediate importance was the dark blue van that was skidding, tires locked, and squealing against the brakes, spinning wildly across the ice of the parking lot. It was going to hit the exact back corner of my truck, then I was standing between them. So, like, she was standing between her truck and the van that was coming at her.
The van was gonna annihilate her.
It says, I didn't even have time to close my eyes. Just before I heard the shattering crunch of the van folding around the truck bed, something hit me hard, but not from the direction I was expecting. My head cracked against the icy blacktop, and I felt something solid and cold pinning me to the ground. Sensual. I was lying on the pavement behind the tan car I'd parked next to, but I didn't have a chance to notice anything else because the van was still coming. It had curled gratingly around the end of the truck and still spinning and sliding was about to collide with me again. I feel like I have to read a lot of this part because it's just like all the details.
It's descriptive, yeah.
It's very descriptive. So I'm sorry, Stephanie Meyer. I'm reading a lot of it.
She called me last week.
Oh, yeah?
She said you were going a little too far on how much you were reading.
Got
You
it.
need to step it back because she wants people to read the
Well,
book.
not for this one. A low oath made me
She's not
aware
gonna like
that
that.
someone was with me, and the voice was impossible not to recognize. 2 long, white hands shot out protectively in front of me, and the van shuddered to a stop a foot from my face, the large hands fitting providentially into a deep dent in the side of the van's body. Then his hands moved so fast they blurred. One was suddenly gripping under the body of the van, and something was dragging me, swinging my leg around like a rag doll's, till they hit the tire of the tan car next to me. A groaning metallic thud hurt my ears, and the van settled, glass popping onto the asphalt, exactly where a second ago my legs had been. So he basically lifted the car away from her and put her to the side in the same moment. That is nuts.
That's like something only a vampire could do.
Maybe.
Or a werewolf.
Yeah, we don't know. Anyways, so then it goes on to say like everything's like super silent, you know, afterwards, and like then everyone's like screaming and frantic because they're like, oh my god, there's an accident. I think they hit her at first.
Right. Well, looking from the other side, you would assume she's dead.
And then she heard his voice. He says, Bella, are you all right? And she says, I'm fine. But then she's like, oh my god, my voice sounds weird. And she tries to sit up, and he's like, be careful. I think you hit your head pretty hard. She like becomes aware of the fact that her head hurts, and she's like, oh my gosh, ow. And he's like, that's what I thought. And she's like, wait a minute. Basically, she's like, wait a damn minute.
Wait one damn second here.
She said, how did you get over here so fast? He says, I was standing right next to you, Bella. And she turns to like sit up, and he like lets her this time. And she's like looking at him like, what the fuck? Like, I know what I saw. Right? And then other people are like, you know, trying to help the people that were driving the car and the van, I should say, that and everything. And like, there's just like a wild, wild commotion. And she's like, but you were over there. And she was like, you're by your car. And he says, no, I wasn't. And she's like, I saw you. And
he said, you hit your head pretty hard, Bella.
Yeah. And he says, Bella, I was standing with you and I pulled you out of the way. And she says, no. And he goes, please, Bella. And she goes, why? And he goes, trust me. And she said, will you promise to explain everything to me later? And he says, fine. And she goes, fine. Like, it's just like, they're so mad at each other. Even though he just saved her life.
Right. But he's lying to her. He's a liar.
So basically it explains like that it took like 6 EMTs and 2 teachers and all these people, like the whole school's like around. Basically,
they probably canceled school that day.
Basically. And then they like, she's like super embarrassed because they bring stretchers in, and like he makes her go on one, like, and it says like, he refused his stretcher, like, because he was on the scene, but she tried to do the same, and it says, but the traitor told them I'd hit my head and probably had a concussion. I almost died of humiliation when they put on the neck brace. It looked like the entire school was there watching. And then they loaded her in the back of the ambulance, and like he rode in the front, and she was like pissed because she's like, well, he was here too, you know. So then
imagine being embarrassed about almost dying in a car crash.
Right. But also, like, how embarrassing would that be, though, like, to be put in a stretcher, like, in front of your whole school? Like, I would have thought about that in my high school days, I feel like. You don't want to be the kid that's, like, put away in an ambulance.
I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of like, yes, please, everybody pay attention to me.
And then, of course, like, to make everything...
I like that you did not respond to what I said at all.
No. You want everyone to pay attention to you? You want me to tell you that that's okay?
Someone kissed my boo-boos. I'm hurt.
You would be. Exactly. You already are like that.
I know. Oh, I was just saying I wouldn't be embarrassed. I'd be like, oh, this is so painful. Oh my gosh.
And then you're like,
go to school for like 2 months. But when I come back, everybody love me.
I was going to say, so then like you get the girls to like love you.
Right.
You're like, please take care of me.
Oh, could you carry my books for me? They're very heavy and my arm's just not the same after the accident.
I don't even know what to say because it's like you would.
Yeah.
So like
If
that's
I was
it.
in high school and that happened to me, absolutely.
But I would be exactly like her. Like I would be like, this is so embarrassing.
I guess I'm more of a Edward and you're more of a Bella. No, I'm more of a simp Mike.
Probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I knew this was gonna happen.
Okay. So I knew this was gonna
Tara had to look at me to make sure I was ready to move on.
Right. I'm like, okay, we need to move past this.
Let's go.
So then, of course, Chief Swan, her dad, shows up before the ambulance drives away,
Charlie?
and it's really embarrassing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then let's see. I'm so off course now because you're talking about
who are the kids that tried to murder her? That's what I want to know.
So it's a guy named Tyler. Let's see. I think it just.
Sus.
What does it describe it? Let me look.
That sounds sus. Someone named Tyler.
Yeah, so like when all the commotion is going on, they say like everyone says like get Tyler out of the van, like it's just like a flurry of everything going on. So yeah.
Okay. Not important.
Well, he's like another one of their like he's just like another side
And
character.
he tried to murder her.
I don't think he tried. I mean, it was really icy, you know.
No.
She's like going over things in her head, and she's like, I tuned him out, like tuned her dad out, to consider the jumble of inexplicable images churning chaotically in my head. When they'd lifted me away from the car, I had seen the deep dent in the Tan's car's bumper, a very distinct dent that fit the contours of Edward's shoulders, as if he had braced himself against the car with enough force to damage the metal frame. Ooh, spooky. Spooky.
He stiffened himself up. What?
You just made a face.
No, I didn't.
Maybe I was
You can't prove it.
Okay. I can't. You're right. And then it says, and then there was his family, looking on from the distance with expressions that ranged from disapproval to fury, but held no concern for their own brother's safety. Suspicious.
Because he's spoiling the secret.
Suspicious.
He's spoiling the secret.
Yes, very much so. So then she's in the emergency room, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she recognizes like the person next to her, and it's a classmate, Tyler Crowley. They give his whole name.
Tyler
From
Crowley. Sorry, I had to do it. You know the song "Mr. Crowley" by Ozzy Osbourne?
Yeah, but I didn't until like
Tyler Crowley.
Like it didn't click.
Ding ding ding.
It didn't click until that moment, and I was just like shell shocked for a second. So he's from her government class, and he's like all bloody and shit because he got glass on him from the accident. And he's like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." And she's like, "I'm fine. Like you look pretty bad. Like, are you fine?" Yeah.
Die?
And he said, "I thought I was going to kill you. I was going too fast and I hit the ice wrong." And she's like, "Don't worry about it. You missed me." And he says, "How did you get out of the way so fast? You were there and then you were gone." And she says, Edward pulled me out of the way." He looked confused. "Who?" "Edward Cullen. He was standing next to me." And it says, "I'd always been a terrible liar. I didn't sound convincing at all." And he goes, "Cullen? I didn't see him. Wow, I guess it was all so fast." Just all happened so fast.
It happened so fast.
Yeah. And it says, "Is he okay?" And she said, "I think so. He's here somewhere, but they didn't make him use a stretcher." She was pissed. And then it says, "I knew I wasn't crazy. What had happened? There was no way to explain away anything that I had seen." She's like trapped in the ER, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, Tyler's still like trying to apologize to her like every 5 seconds.
Another simp in a long line of simps.
It's true. It's so true. And then she's like finally just like trying to relax, and then she hears him come in the door, and Tyler immediately is like, "Edward, I'm really sorry." And he's like, no,
put his
but
hand up.
he literally says no. Yeah, it says Edward lifted a hand to stop him. No blood, no foul. And he says, "So what's the verdict?" And she's like, "Well, there's nothing wrong with me, but they won't let me go. How come you aren't strapped to a gurney like the rest of us?" She's so mad. And he says, "It's all about who you know." So, you know, Dr. Cullen in the house.
Coming in,
yeah.
He's gonna be like,
"I'm
says beautiful." Is that how he sounds?
Probably.
"I'm so beautiful.
Here's
going to fix you and make you.
Are you ready for the actual description?
Sorry.
It says, then a doctor walked around the corner and my mouth fell open. He was young, he was blonde, ... and he was handsomer than any movie star I'd ever seen.
Oh.
He was pale, though, and tired looking with circles under his eyes. From Charlie's description, this had to be Edward's father.
Dr. Cullen.
I feel like it's so funny because, like, when I'm rewatching the movies and stuff, when I was a kid, I was like, oh my God, Edward, you know, like, but now I'm like, Dr. Cullen, you know?
Edward, while handsome and strapping young lad, Dr. Cullen's got the money.
That's true,
He's a surgeon. You know how long he went to surgeon vampire school to become a surgeon? He's got the dollars.
I mean, you don't know much about him, but still, I'm like...
He's got money. He's a surgeon.
True.
That's probably the whole hospital's budget is going to Dr. Cullen's payroll.
Probably. It's a small hospital.
Yeah. He's
like, your x-rays look good, but, like, does your head hurt? Edward says you hit it pretty hard. And she's like, it's fine. And he's like... He like notices that she winces like when he's touching it, and he's like, oh, it's tender though, and she's like, no, she's just like, nah, it's not, it's fine.
She's like, stop.
And he's like, well, your father's in the waiting room, and she's like, well, can't you go back to school? And he's like, I think you should take it easy today. And she's like, does he get to go back to school? To Edward? And he's like, well, someone has to spread the good news that we survived.
Why is she so mad?
She's just angry. She's an angry gal.
She could have died.
And then
maybe she wanted to.
Dr. Cullen says, actually, most of the school seems to be in the waiting room, and she's like mortified, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, then do you want to stay? And she's like, no. But he's like, oh, it sounds like Dr. Cullen says, like, it sounds like you're extremely lucky that this happened. And then she says, well, it's lucky Edward happened to be standing next to me. I'm probably embellishing the way she's saying it, but
embellishing the way.
But it does say I amended with a hard glance at the subject of my statement.
Yeah, no, you're
I feel like I'm doing well.
I think you're capturing the performance.
Yeah, okay, good. And then Dr. Cullen just says, oh, well, yes. Like, suddenly occupied with the papers in front of him.
Like, okay, cool, whatever, bitch. Like, stop.
No, I think he's just like...
He doesn't care.
No, I think it's like, he's like, oh, yeah.
Well, right, he's dodging it, but he doesn't... Exactly, he doesn't care.
And then he's like telling Tyler that he has to stay a little bit longer because he's got glass all over the place. So then she's like, well, I gotta go. But then why did I say Tyler? Bella is going to Edward and says, can I talk to you for a minute? And he's like, well, your father's waiting for you.
He's like, no, I don't want to talk to you.
And she's like, I'd like to speak with you alone if you don't mind. And then he's like, what do you want? His eyes were cold. You owe me an explanation, I reminded him. I saved your life. I don't owe you anything. I flinched back from the resentment in his voice. You promised. Bella, you hit your head. You don't know what you're talking about. His tone was very cutting, it says. And then she gets angry. She's like, it says my temper flared now, and I glared defiantly at him. There's nothing wrong with my head. He glared back. What do you want from me, Bella? I want to know the truth, I said. I want to know why I'm lying for you. What do you think happened? He says. And she's like, this is like the big part. Mm-hmm. He says, all I know is that you weren't anywhere near me. Tyler didn't see you either, so don't tell me I hit my head too hard. That van was going to crush us both, and it didn't, and your hands left dents in the side of it, and you left a dent in the other car, and you're not hurt at all, and the van should have smashed my legs, but you were holding it up. And it says, I could hear how crazy it sounded, and I couldn't continue. I was so mad, I could feel the tears coming. I tried to force them back by grinding my teeth together. He was staring at me incredulously, but his face was tense and defensive. You think I lifted a van off you? His tone questioned my sanity, but only made me more suspicious. It was like a perfectly delivered line by a skilled actor.
Gaslighting.
Nobody will believe that, you know, he says.
Gaslighting.
Yeah, he's a little dangerous.
Gaslighting.
What can you do?
That's problematic.
And she's like, well, I'm not going to tell anybody. Then why does it matter? He says. And it's like, he's like surprised.
Right.
It matters to me, I insisted. I don't like to lie, so there better be a good reason why I'm doing it. Can't you just thank me and get over it? Thank you, she says, like mad. You're not going to let it go, are you? No. In that case, I hope you enjoy disappointment.
Roasted her.
Roasted her. Absolutely roasted. And then they're just like mad at each other, like glaring at each other. And she says, why did you even bother? He paused, and for a brief moment, his stunning face was unexpectedly vulnerable. I don't know, he whispered. And he turned his back on her.
He wants to drink her blood.
And walked away.
He wants to drink her blood for sustenance.
Maybe. We don't know that.
He could have just done it when no one was looking.
Yeah, you're all right. Yeah.
But that's not as fun.
No.
Vampires like the chase.
So then she was like super mad, right? Because she's like, I guess I gotta leave now. And then Charlie's like all freaked out because like she was her, yeah. And he's like, what did the doctor say? And she's like, he says I should go home. And then basically the last thing that happens was she's like, or Charlie's like, you should probably call your mom. And she's like, what the heck? You told her that I was like in an accident. That wasn't a good idea, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then the last part of I feel like I always have to read the last part of the chapter because it's so juicy.
Right.
But it says, I was consumed by the mystery Edward presented, and more than a little obsessed by Edward himself. Stupid, stupid, stupid. I wasn't as eager to escape Forks as I should be, as any normal, sane person would be. I decided I might as well go to bed early that night. Charlie continued to watch me anxiously, and it was getting on my nerves, so I stopped on my way to grab 3 Tylenol from the bathroom. They did help, and the pain eased, and I drifted to sleep. That was the first night I dreamed of Edward Cullen. And that is the end of the chapter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I just have to say, I can't believe you like predicted that this was going to be the chapter with the car already, the van.
Well, you know.
And that's like the one thing that, like the one big scene that you knew from this.
Yeah, it's the only thing I know. And then
so we have a lot to go.
I really only know it because of the Decode music video, because I've seen that music
video.
Yeah,
that's true.
A million times.
Because it's so good.
Because I told Jason this the other day and he laughed at me, but I think that might be my favorite song.
Of like all time?
Of all time.
No, that's not true.
Yes. Decode is such a good song.
It is a very good song, though.
And it's like nothing else Paramore ever wrote again or wrote before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like this amazing track. Like it's just so...
It's so good.
It's the only song that
and it was like written for that.
Right.
It's so crazy to me.
It's the only song that consistently like gives me chills when I listen to it.
Okay.
I don't listen to it all the time, but when I do, I'm like...
You think during one of...
The last part where like the drums kick up more.
Yeah.
Like after the kind of quiet part and it goes into the last chorus.
I mean, it's like, that's crazy.
The breakdown.
Yeah.
The last chorus where he picks up the drum like beat, like he's got the double snare going, and then it goes to the breakdown with the I think I'd be
I know. I'm not denying it's a good song. I think it's like a really good song, probably one of the best songs, but I'm just surprised that you're saying that based on like all of like the Coheed songs in existence in the world and everything.
Yep. My favorite song. I can't think of one I like better. Anyway, that's not what we were talking about.
No.
That's kind of how I expected that whole scene to go, just based on context clues. Is
right.
He saves her, and then he has to be like, "Yo, you didn't see what you thought you saw,"
and
then she's mad about it because, of course, she is. And
like, why wouldn't she be?
Right. Like, if you would have said to me, "Hey, Mike, this chapter's about the car crash. I need you to describe it," I think I would have got pretty close.
I think so too. Maybe I should have done that in retrospect. Oh well.
That doesn't matter.
But I feel like
I think I would have.
Now we're past like the number one scene that you know.
Now everything's open.
Everything is so crazy.
Stuff I know that like but I don't know scenes, but I just know like there's the Edward versus Jacob controversy, and that's not even in this book, right?
No.
Yeah, it's later on, right?
Mostly.
Like Jacob probably shows up, I'm guessing, but like it's not. It's not like a thing, or is it?
No, it's not. It's not a thing.
The Team Edward versus Team Jacob.
Yeah, that definitely starts later.
Okay.
Not to spoil too much, but
right.
We definitely do meet Jacob Black in this
But-
book if you want to know.
Right, but I mean, it's like that's like the biggest pop culture thing I can think of.
Oh,
to come
yeah.
out of
I
Twilight
mean-
is the Team Edward versus Team Jacob
Mhm.
because everybody was talking about it when
Oh
those movies were coming.
My
out.
God, that reminds me. Remember how whatever episode it was, one of the last two that we did, I said that Twilight. I think it was the first one. That Twilight was a cultural reset. I literally saw this like video that literally someone else was like, "This was a cultural reset." I have to find it now.
And you were like, "Oh my god,
And I was
said
like,
that."
I said that, and Mike was like, "Meh, meh,
I didn't say
meh."
her. I agreed with you.
Did you?
Yeah.
I feel like at first you were like,
No, I didn't hem and haw. I agreed with you. I said something else.
Oh, you know what it was? It was a TikTok, first
Oh.
of all. And it's a girl rating Paramore songs, which is so weird. That because we were just talking about that. And I'm waiting for it to get to the decode one because it has decode in here. It says decode 10 out of 10, a cultural reset / Twilight.
It was so weird that I've like loved that song forever, and I'd never watched Twilight.
Yeah, it's so true.
It's pretty weird, right?
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Pretty weird. Very true.
It's just a good song.
It's a very good song.
Anyway, next episode.
Next episode we talk.
Going to talk about.
I was
Decode,
gonna say
and
next
that's it.
episode we'll
And
continue
we're
our
just gonna watch covers of Decode on YouTube.
the whole time.
So basically, we're just gonna do my normal Saturday night. All right, Tara, thank you so much for coaching me.
You are welcome.
Next week we will dive into chapter 4.
Yes.
Do I usually guess stuff at the end of the episode, or do we save that for the next episode?
I don't know. I think you wrap it up, but I feel like we don't have to wrap this one up because you knew like what the chapter was about.
That's true.
Do we predict for the next one?
I think we do all that in the beginning of the next episode.
I
That's
feel
usually
like-
how we do.
I don't
things.
know. We don't.
I don't know.
We don't really know
Tell
what we're
us in
doing.
the comments or send us an email. Oh, that's what we can do. You can send us an email at cbterrapodcast@gmail.com. Is that right? Oh my god, did I say the wrong thing? Hold on.
Hold on.
Yeah, it is. cbterrapodcast. You can send us an email, cbterrapodcast@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Twitter
Oh,
On
I did not
Twitter.
know that.
at cbterrapod.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
At cbterrapod. See, here it is. I made it last night.
Okay.
cbterrapod. And otherwise you can join our Discord where we talk about the Anthem Report podcast, which is another podcast I feature on, and all other kinds of other things. But you can go to the CB Terra part of the Discord and chat with people about the podcast and Twilight or whatever you want.
Mhm.
Please don't spoil me on things.
Yes. No spoilers.
Don't-
Like I will be so upset if there's spoilers because this whole journey rides on so much.
Yeah.
So like
Don't spoil me.
no spoilers.
Don't spoil me on things I don't know about, which is everything. So don't spoil
Which
me
is
on anything.
literally everything
Literally
going forward.
everything going forward. So no spoilers, please.
Mhm.
But Tara, thank you again for coaching me.
You're welcome.
I'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. This isn't how we ended.
I
think,
know.
but I don't remember
Okay.
how
We
ended.
don't even remember anything about our
Okay,
own
let's try again.
podcast.
Tara, thanks for coaching me.
You're welcome.
Oh, cool.
Okay,
Great. All right. Bye. Check. Hello. I do exactly what I just did.
No. Check, 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 check.